See what happens. All right. So, hello and welcome. I usually don't like to do these chats, like where I'm talking too much. Apparently, it's not in accordance with my North Node. But, this video is about knowing whether you kind of belong or not belong. Is that's one of the things I've had. So, if you are concerned about belonging, this is one of those things that I wish I'd learned. There's several things that I wish I'd learned. I'm going to name about 9 things. Number 1. So the first thing is, as a queer man and a spiritual guy, it's not about the labels, right? So, but number 1, it's more than okay to be different. Totally okay. And of course, it's not going to start off that way. It's like, what is okay? What the hell is okay? Like, I'm going to be okay. Am I just going to be okay? I'm going to force myself to be okay? No. It's a learning process. It's a learning process. I can tell you right now, my experience is like years and years and years of having to go through these, you can say, like a lot of ego deaths, a lot of changes, a lot of things I had to let go of, beliefs, right? And I didn't run away, or at least I didn't try to run away, because I had no choice. I had to go through the suffering. I had to go through the fear. I still go through it. I mean, it's one of those things. It's it's one thing to be queer. It's one thing to be spiritual. It's another thing to face it and like face things head on. So it's one of those things. It's you and you yourself can only figure out what it is that the soul wants, like your higher self, your soul, all that stuff, what it really wants, what it's good for you. You follow that and you listen to it, you'll see. Number 2 is one of those things where it's like, it's like, oh, being gay, it's like shiny and like, fluffy and flowery and glittery and all that stuff. Didn't really work for me. I did, but I felt like there's still a facade. I had to put on a face. It's like I had to be this. I couldn't, like, for example, like something simple as like, and not so simple as flatulence. Ooh, gay men don't fart. It's so unladylike. It's like, so basically you can be either way. You can be your own little unicorn. You can be whatever the fuck you feel called to be. I wrote down here in my notes, sometimes, I want to be bold. Sometimes I want to be intense. Sometimes I just don't want to do anything. Sometimes I just want to, that's it. Just like that. Just breathe. Sometimes I want to say things. Sometimes I want to swear. Sometimes I don't want to do this. Sometimes I want to, it's a learning process. Another learning process. The shining is something that you have to find. You do your own way. It's easier said than done. Absolutely sure. Totally agree. But it comes down to really, it's kind of like honing your craft. Like we all have this craft inside us. We have this magic. It sometimes it has to scream at us for us to notice it, because it's very quiet. It's very subtle. And it's really in the stillness. Not to quote, that song from, it reminds me of that song from Boyz II Men. In the still of the night. But there's a connection, I suppose. I mean, like still, it's not really just being still. It starts in the quietness. You see that moment right there? Recognizing it? Yeah. That's that. You'll go, the further you go into that, the more it becomes practice, the more it's like, oh, I can be the awareness of what I'm going through. The shining can go through that way too. Pretty much everything I'm going to say here is pretty much goes through that, because you're source, you're infinite, you are God. It's blasphemous for some people, It's like, oh, okay. So because that's the ego. Ego, it's a collective ego, and that's totally fine. I, people have their own level of consciousness, and if they want to run on fear, go ahead. But the only person you'll be destroying is your connection to your real self. And I don't want that anymore. I don't want that. At least for a while. It's been such a few years now. I don't want things to be stressful. And that's one of the things that why I went through what things that I went through. Okay. Let's moving on. Number 3. This is a kind of a strong one. Expect invalidation. Why? Why the fuck would you expect invalidation? Why the fuck would you want to be, invalidated? It's not because you want to be invalidated. It's just there are people who just don't agree with what you have, especially for me. Like I often go through those delusions, and it's okay to go through the delusion. You have to validate. First, the validation has to be accepting that that's what it is. It comes down to that thing. I mean, I learned it from Teal Swan's work, and I was like, oh, that's right, validation, yeah, because we want to be validated. Validation is not so much about giving credit to you or acknowledging your stuff, but it starts with that, but it's more about seeing things as it is. No judgment, no labels, no nothing. But you let the thoughts come through, let the judgments come through, let the triggers, let the judgments, the pointing fingers, let the ego come through. And when you just witness it, it's just validation, really. But it does start from within yourself. And then if you can find it without, meaning outside of yourself, like other people, great. Most likely, don't expect it. So expect the opposite. And it's not because you want to give up. It's just more like, it's just what they are. It's just what they're going through. It's their process. Everyone has their own journey to take. It's like like I said before in one of my videos, I said it is like the roots of a tree, or the roots of a tree and the branches. Right? Every one of us is like that. The source energy is a tree, and think about it that way. It's like that analogy of the tree. Number 4. The word queer means strange, for those who don't know. Queer means strange. But what does strange usually do? In French, they have étrange, which means like foreigner. Étranger, foreigner meaning a different person, away. But you can have fun with that. So I think you look for the gifts in that strangeness. You're being foreign. It's about traveling. But what is traveling? Isn't it an adventure? Yes, exactly. No matter how fucking scary it gets, I'm telling you right now, I can't really prove that, that's what it is. But the only way through, as one of my coaches say, the only way out is through. When we resist that, at least for now, that's what the human physiology is capable of. So, only way is through. Because we're so afraid of death. That's the biggest thing. It's really the biggest thing. But because we identify with it. But it takes time. You don't need to say, I'm going to disidentify it. I have no ego. That's more ego. Right? Number 5. It still depends on your unique personality and journey. So your path. Right? So for me, even when it comes to like the communities I've been, even the one I'm in now, the ones I was before, I was in a swim team, I was in a orchestra, all these things. I was in the choir, I was with a bunch of different groups and communities and collectives. I'm still different. Like I still feel like I'm this. It's just so different. So that's okay. You might be that black sheep. So expect that your difference is going to be different from somebody else's difference, and different. But in the end, we're all in this together, really, because it comes from the same source. Number 6, laugh with, not at, laugh with yourself. So I would remember when I was a kid, I had this strange pull that I was like, if I trip, I'm not going to be humiliated. Meaning, it's not that I refuse to be humiliated, but a bit more like, if I learn to laugh at myself or I laugh inside, I won't, I won't give off that vibe, that energy of like, oh no, people are making fun of me. Oh shit, I just made a fool out of myself. It's like it's that label. But I knew at a young age, I was like, how old was I? I don't remember. 8 years old, I think. I started realizing, just laugh at myself. First, I thought it was laughing at myself, but really it was laughing with myself because it's like this energy that is like, I know I have this choice. So go through it. Allow for the tears, the grief, the shame, etc. By just allowing. If you guys know Gabrielle Berstein, she talks about. I don't know if she was quoting. What was this? He's become one of her guides. I forgot what his name is. Wayne Dyer. He said, "Give over instead of giving up, giving in is giving over, allowing for that stuff because it's already been here. You're already here where you are. Allow for it. Just really allow for it." Number 7, you are human. Not only human, but that means allowing for the same things, similar things. Like just go with it. Um, but don't see it as like it is what it is, because that's not acknowledgement. That's not even validation. It's just kind of like brushing it aside, but really like facing it and saying, okay, here are the dangers. Here's COVID. Here's death. Here are the vaccines. Here's the corruption. Here are the leaders. Here's the abuse. Here's the spanking. Here's the the brother that beats you up. And people think it's like, oh, it's just sibling rivalry. No, here's all that, the trauma, complex PTSD, childhood stuff, inner child stuff, trauma everywhere. Let all those things go through it. All the lows and all the highs, the intensities, the fears and the anger, the sadness, the grief, the joy. Allow for it, and you'll see that it's like you're wanting. When you go deeper inside, you'll start to want. It's like, I don't want that negative energy anymore. Or at least you want to rise above it. You acknowledge it, and you see it, and you accept it, and you say, okay, cool. Do I want to stay stuck in there? Perhaps for a while. But being stuck is really like stagnant water. You know what happens to stagnant water, right? It's it it becomes like poisonous, toxic water. We don't want to be still waters. Water is meant to move. But if that is the case, eventually something will happen. It has its, still water has its own consciousness, just like everything. Number 8. Yes, you're human, but you are spirit learning to be human. You've heard this, probably some of you or many of you have already heard this. So the thing about this one is that you can always choose. And for me, at least, I'm it's not there yet. I mean, who the fuck cares? It doesn't matter. The point is, I'm making the choice. I now have this awareness that I can choose, but it takes practice, and your body will just naturally get used to it. It's not just some sort of like separate thing from you. There's like, if I choose, somehow my body will just resist it. Well, no, it's your body adapts. You have to let it adapt. Last one, well, last but not least, right and wrong are constructs. It doesn't mean that there's no such thing as harmful, there's no such thing as like dangerous and all that stuff. Yeah, of course. But it's, when I say right or wrong, I mean tying this to being queer. I think you've heard this before. It goes around It's been around. But the way I've seen it is that the way I've understood it is that it's something to do with what resonates and what doesn't resonate. That's kind of what it is. It's like, do you feel drawn to that? Because there are people who are meant to be your demons. They are meant to be your enemies. Not necessarily because you're resisting them, but if you do resist them, but you learn from that too. But they're meant. You can also become a trigger for someone, and that's okay. That means you're kind of fulfilling this role. You're filling the role that you came here to choose, that you decided before you incarnated into this body. Now, for some, it may like, what the hell is he talking about? That's what it is. It's this energy of, it's this energy that comes from the cycle of, like, I don't know, because it's so invisible. It's hard to believe, right? And you're like, many of us are still like, I don't know what that is. It's invisible. What? I don't. What is that real? Okay. But have you ever believed in something like yourself? What is that? Is that fake? That energy is not. It's real. It's the same idea. It's the same awareness. It's the same consciousness. It's just a higher level of consciousness. And think about it as like energy is kind of like compared to like mass things that are object. We're so used to this dense reality that because it's so dense that it has this energy to form things, because it needs to be dense for things to form and solid, like literally matter. It needs to be heavy. Anything lighter is lighter energy. That's where these higher consciousnesses are. This is where this energy lies. This is where belief comes in. Imagination, thought is also part of that as well. Emotion, somewhere, I believe somewhere around there. It's closer to this area. For those who are aware of chakras already, yeah, you can see it. That's why when you're up here, it feels lighter, right? I mean, the lowest part of your body, like your feet, is like very dense, but it's like good dense, right? Density doesn't necessarily mean good or bad. It has nothing to do with that. It's just that's the way it is. That's just the way it is. Matter is energy turning to matter, or I guess antimatter is the opposite. I don't know. Right. I don't know the exact science behind it, but that's my experience. So the point is, going back to the whole construct of right and wrong, you need those to expand and grow. You have to fall in order to rise. And sometimes those dips aren't exactly like, but they're not like, like 1,000 fucking meters or 100 million meters into the ocean. Not that kind of deep. It doesn't have to go that deep for you to go up. But the point is, I think we are so caught up in this whole like, it has to be better, it has to be better, it has to be better. We're resisting the moment, and we're resisting the potential for us to actually learn why we're going up in the first place. We're forgetting why we're like, you just want to go there. You want to bypass these sufferings. We want to bypass even death. We want to bypass that. We skip on. What happens when you bypass things? You get to go back again. It's like rushing things. When you're in a rush to communicate, when we're in a rush to get things done, we're in a rush, just in a rush in general. We tend to make these mistakes. Mistakes are just that they create loopholes. They create these little spots in between. Again, though, those are the things we have to learn from. Because sometimes you're like, oh shit, I missed a step, or I missed a step. Again, it's not really about steps. You know what I'm saying, right? Because if you throw a pebble or rock, those flat rocks, right? If you spin it, you go like this in like a lake, right? It skips because it's going fast. That's exactly kind of like that analogy. When you go, it skips. There's that one area it hasn't touched because it goes too fast. It's like skipping. It's kind of like the same, similar energy, similar process. When we're in a hurry, when things are in a hurry, and that's just the energy of rushing. That's the energy of speed. That's the energy of things that are fast. It's meant to go through things like that. It's not about perfection, but it's also not about imperfection. This is really what people mean when they say, or when you've heard the word imperfection. It's really not about completion or non-completion. So we have to go down. We have to contract and go deep in order for us to expand. Sometimes it takes that much. If every one of us were like this enlightened guru, then what the fuck is the point? Nothing. So the goal is, not the goal is, but eventually what will happen is when you're sick and tired of this heaviness, the guilt, the shame, the invalidation, all that stuff that's weighing you down, you start to get tired of it and you start to move. You start to make choices. There'll be screams, like not literal screams, maybe, that'll, be like, oh, time to make changes now. And I'm still learning that myself. So again, I'll post in the link. Thank you so much for watching. I'll post in the link, the list that I put in here, and see what you get from that. I hope this helps, especially for those who are, I know it's like people say it's like old hat. It's like, oh, coming out. Well, not really, because it's not about coming out. It's about accepting yourself. One thing, maybe it's a 10th little thing I wish I knew before then, was that, I don't have to come out. Meaning I don't have to come out to people who don't resonate with that. So usually it's okay to come out to people who you feel you can completely trust. Again, this is not about good or bad. This is just about people you resonate with, or people that will be in alignment with your journey. But there are also people who will be also part of that, which feel like disalignment or misalignment, but they're there to teach you, right? So basically, I think the 10th thing is resist nothing. I'm going to type that in myself here. Resist nothing. And that's like easier said than done, but again, it's practice. But this is why I do the Wim Hof method. I mentioned this a gazillion times. That's exaggerated, but I mentioned this a lot of times in my videos. Why I do the Wim Hof method, not because it's a method, but because it works for me. Because it helps me to be present and surrender to the cold, even when it's ice bath, and really surrender to that. Because the thought that we have, the perception, right? The ego, you'll see it many times. You'll learn it. Sometimes you don't even need to be persuaded or even be taught this information. Your experience yourself, how you go through it, is going to be your gift to yourself. It's going to be your present, your magic. It's going to be your thing that's going to release you even more. And release is not necessarily like, I'm completely free for today. Oh, I'm done. Okay, I came out. I'm done. I'm free. No. Right? What's the point? If it's going to be the end, that's it. You're done. Okay, bye-bye. That's it. What's the point? There's no experience. There's no learning. Not for ourselves necessarily, but ourselves as individuals into the collective, back into source. I know that sounds a little weird for those people who don't get it yet, but that's the way energy is. So I hope this helps. If you have any comments, questions down below, you know what to do. You've done this before. This is YouTube. I don't need to. Honestly, I'm not here to really teach. I'm here to just show you these are my experiences. But if you have any questions, I'm here for you. If you have any things you'd like to share, any ideas too of my channel, I'd like to help you with that. If it's in alignment with what resonates with me as well, right? It's teamwork. Life is teamwork. Life is a team sport. They said that in the line from Sabrina. Life is a team sport. But yeah, that's what it is. It is, right? So anyways, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys later. Thank you. Bye.